Hi, guys. This is Doug Jessup with another episode of The Caring Stories. Now, with me today, Daren Watts. Now, Daren, you have got an incredible story, so thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Here's the thing that people might not know about you, okay? You've been a doctor for 25 years, okay? OBGYN, okay? Say that fast
Yeah.
3 times,
Yeah.
right? But you also have quite a story of resilience and overcoming challenges. And sometimes I think a lot of the thing is you find out a lot about people, not when you're in a good place, but when you're in a bad place and you've overcome those things. So I think you know what I'm talking about. So there was
Sure.
some kind of incident a while back. Can you fill me in?
Sure. Can I back up maybe just a
Sure.
second and say that resilience is developed over a lifetime. Um, Even though the tester was December of 2022 when I fell in a bathroom in Germany and broke my neck
Ooh.
and became paralyzed from the neck down. But I have to say that that resilience occurred with a lifetime of being able to become an obstetrician gynecologist, which is not an easy job. A lot of sleepless nights, a lot of stressors, a lot of really challenges that occurred prior to this whole event. But in December of 22, I fell in a bathroom and I lay paralyzed in a bathroom floor, hard, cold, knew that my life was going to change.
Wow. Okay, so you have this accident and you're a doctor, so you know a lot more about the body than most people, okay?
Yeah.
So you've got the spinal injury. What was kind of your first thought?
Well, it's hard to know the exact first thought, but I believe my first thought was I knew there was a big problem. My wife was in the room next door, asked if everything was fine, and I didn't have enough strength to even say, I'm fine. I'm not fine. I can't move anything. She started, increasing the decibels of her voice, the strength of her voice, say, are you okay? And I said, I can't move a thing. And so I think my first thought was, wow, I've gone from being totally independent to being able to move nothing. And it's pretty sobering, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, the interesting part is, and I'll be honest, I hadn't met you before, but I'd heard your story.
Yeah.
And so, quite honestly, I was a bit shocked to see you walk in here. And, with a
So am I.
it's
Is
like,
that okay?
yeah, I mean, what the heck happened next?
Yeah. Well, that's the best part of the story. Obviously, the worst part is what we just talked about. As I lay in my hospital bed in Germany, paralyzed from the neck down, realizing that life was going to be totally different, I was really flooded with this amazing emotion that I knew that things were going to be fine and that God had a different path for me. And so that's kind of where I started at the very beginning, was knowing that life was going to be fine, that all things were going to work out for good because of my faith in God. And then I just started to see gosh, it's hard sometimes to talk about. Sorry. Gosh, gotta collect myself. Anyway, then I just started to see the amazing people around me. Wife. We can edit some of this, right? A wife who really never left my side, and a daughter who, all my daughters and my sons were just amazing. Family reached out. And so it was, even though I laid with really very little motion, I woke up from surgery. Surgery was done in the University Hospital in Munich, and they did a great job. I woke up miraculously. I could move my left leg just a little bit, and I kept moving it and kept moving it and thought, okay, this is just the start. And it was the start of a lot of, I believe, some people call it motor tics, but a lot of just persistent to say, I'm getting this, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep moving my legs. In fact, at one point, the nurses said, will you stop moving your legs? In their broken English. And I just said, I stopped for a second, then I just kept going. But I was just amazed to see a swell of just community that was able to help me at the lowest point of my life. Starting with family, but extending to church members and partners and people in medicine and nurses. It was amazing. I remember one nurse in particular came in with tears in her eyes saying, listen, I don't have a belief in God, but I've never prayed harder for anything. And, and even today, it's been 2.5 years now, I see people all the time that say, I want you to know that we've been praying for you. And so to feel this community swell around me was just powerful. So that was one part of the journey. The other part was trusting in the process of patience. And one thing would occur. I first started moving my left leg, and that was probably the only thing I moved for a while. Then a week and a half later, I finally made it to the United States. I was able to move my right leg, and it was just awesome. Like at one point, I remember moving my left finger about like that, and seeing the joy not only in my own
Yeah.
Just spirit, but just family. And I remember the neurosurgeon, in fact, we have it on video, him being so excited that I could move my finger about like that. And what you realize is that the recovery is just slow and arduous, and requires patience and persistence and hope and reliance on people in every step of the way.
So, Daren, you'd been a doctor for a long time, and then I also understand that you were a leader in your church. And these are your major identifiers, and now all of a sudden you're realizing, oh boy, I'm not sure I can do this. How did you deal with that stress?
Hmm. Well, I remember the moment my family came in Germany, when I was able to see them for the first time. And I know that it was probably the worst thing for me to say, especially when I just saw my family for the first time. But I remember asking my wife, can I make a phone call? I need to make a few phone calls. And I made 2 phone calls, one to the leader who was over me in our church. And I said, listen, I need to release this responsibility that I have. I need to feel like I need to take this off of my shoulders. And I remember he was kind of laughed, and he said, oh, no, I don't think you understand. Like, I can't even move a finger. I can't even, I just can't be the leader that I need to be. And, you feel, is it your identity, or is it the sense of like having the opportunity to bless people's lives? I felt like I couldn't be that person at that time. And the second thing I needed to change in my feeling of responsibility was being a doctor. And I remember calling my partner, and after he cried and I cried, I said, listen, I can't do this. I can't be your partner. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm letting you down. But it was amazing what that did for me. That change of responsibility now became, this is my challenge. this is what I have to do. And I feel like I started that with the right mindset, which was I had been given so much, this responsibility and opportunity to bless people's lives for so many years was just overwhelming. It was amazing, like how, and I wept with my family, like I've been able to do this. I've been able to be athletically whatever I wanted to do. I could do, I could serve however I wanted to serve. And I felt this, instead of pity and anger for myself, I felt this overwhelming feeling of gratitude. And I felt like it put me in a mindset to be able to heal, to be able to start from the very, very bottom, because that's kind of where I felt like I was.
To me, words have power. Okay. And, you are a professional person that describes things in lots of details and everything, but there's also some emotional words that seem to keep coming up: community,
Mm-hmm.
challenge, opportunity. But the other one is service. And I understand that you are trying to focus all of these challenges and this persistence and the things you've overcome to a new, let's call it opportunity,
Yeah,
with the community with which you live. You want to help me understand more about that?
sure. I think I said this at the beginning, how do you overcome challenges? We overcome challenges with the repetition of being able to do it at a very early age. And for me, the desire to serve started when I wanted to become a doctor. And, it sounds very trite, but you do it because you want to help people. And that is the core of who you are. And so you start in medical school and you're working your guts out to understand these principles and these diseases. And it's not, it's challenging mentally in medical school. And then you get into residency and it's 120 hours a week and it's physically and mentally challenging, that you develop this core of who you are to help people. And it's night and day, and it's the grocery store, and it's part of who you are in your home and in your community, like your neighborhood. And people call you for questions, and that is who you are. And and so, not being able to work as a physician in the same capacity uh, takes away a part of who you are in the sense of being able to help and serve other people. And so, for me, this journey, which is not a journey that I've ever sought after,
Yeah, no.
um, about 4 months ago, in the same way that I had that revelation in my hospital bed in Germany, knowing that everything would be fine, the inspiration came that I should run for mayor. And I thought, not this is not who I am. But it kept coming and it kept coming. And then I started looking into what the job entailed and started meeting with people and met with the current mayor who's been serving for the past 12 years and is not up for reelection. He was a great guy, Rob Daly. And I met with the city manager of our city and really with the thought, like, do I want to do this? Is this the right thing for me to do? And then I just felt like this is what I'm going to try. I'm going to go for it. And so, as I've done through all of my career, what I've chosen to do is surround myself with the best people to be able to get things done and to be able to build something. And I think that's what neighborhoods are about. That's what cities about. We're fortunate to have a relatively small city at 31,000 to be able to know a lot of people and know each other and to really work together to continue to build on the community that I think is so amazing in Holiday currently.
Now you have what I call a legacy of service and helping. So
Yeah.
through your service as a doctor and your church service and such. But I also understand that your dad was a great example to you.
Yeah.
Tell me about your dad.
So my dad came from Australia at a young age, 21 years of age. Met his wife, my mom, in Utah. She's a Delta Rabbit. She's a great southern Utah gal. And they stayed in Utah. And my dad's an architect and developer, an amazing guy. And in every aspect of his life, he tried to build, not just build a community and building homes, but built young men. I think he worked with young men in our church for 45 years. I think most people know him either through that or through the scouting program. He was tireless in his desire to help people. And so I saw that, I felt that. And he's now 93 years old. He's not very mobile. He's really becoming quite weak and at home. And his memory's not great. But every time I see him, he says to me, I'm going to give you $1,000. And he gives you $1,000 for your campaign. He's so excited that I'm running for mayor. And so if I were to accept that $1,000 now, I would probably be totally funded for my campaign. But that's the beauty of memory loss, right? But anyway, I said to him, Dad, you've given me more than $1,000. You've given me a good name. A name that people know in this community. So,
well, now every family seems to have, I don't know if family motto is not necessarily the right word, but was there something that was kind of taught in your family that you are passing along to your children?
Well, for sure, it was work ethic. We observed it. We did it. We worked as a family. I've got siblings who have succeeded in so many other ways in their own careers. But it was work. We saw it. And it was an amazing thing that my father instilled within us was a desire not just to work, but to serve other people. And we did that through going down to the road home and doing service projects. We did that through serving our neighbors, cleaning up leaves. It was just always on his mind. Even at 85, and we were still a little angry with him about this, but he was the guy that would go and shovel the neighbors' walks. And we said, there's got to be somebody else that can do that. There's got to be somebody there. Anyway, and it's been the hardest thing watching him be in bed, is that I know that's in his nature of who he is to do that. And I think he's given that to each one of us.
Okay, so you just mentioned, okay, it's hard seeing your dad with his mobility issues and everything. Okay. If I were to ask one of your children, what was it like to see your dad lacking that mobility, but then getting it back?
Regarding me?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that if I were to ask them, I think each of them would say that they have been so impressed with the perseverance and the faith that I knew I would be healed. In fact, we were just talking about this last night with my wife. She said, yeah, he told everybody at 1 week that I am going to be walking out of this hospital. And she would say, oh, it's okay, Daren, And anyway, about 2 months later, I walked out of the hospital. So I think, it took time, it took perseverance, it was an amazing cycle. I just have to say this, Doug. I remember every morning waking up expecting new movement. and every night going to bed with a sense of gratitude that I had achieved new movement. And I remember seeing some of my grandkids walk into the room, and I would remember seeing them put something to their mouth because they were young, and thinking how that would be amazing to be able to do that. But to see the way that they developed over time, and to watch them walk and be a little envious of them walking. But it was a process that I'd have to say that they would say to me, I'm proud of your perseverance
Well,
and faith.
as a grandfather myself,
Yeah.
it's one thing I can promise you. Your grandkids, when they're our age, are going to tell the story about how their grandpa overcame. You leave quite a legacy. Legacy of service, legacy of community, and a legacy of overcoming.
Yeah. Sweet. Thank you.
What's the website that we should be sending people to?
Well, they can find it at two locations. One will be Doc Watts for mayor, DOC Watts for FOR, mayor.com. Or they can find it at Doc Watts _, which will be our Instagram page.
Daren, thanks for coming on the Caring Stories today. It's been quite a powerful, positive, and inspirational story. We appreciate you sharing.
Thank you so much for having me.
With another entry into the Caring Stories and Daren Watts, I'm Doug Jessup.